We are recording.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Six o'clock. We'll get started. Welcome, everyone. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted, and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello.
Here.
Mr. Emmons.
Here.
Mrs. Fiore.
Here.
Mrs. Podgorski. Mr. Wallace.
Here.
Mr. Zwirling.
Here.
Mrs. Sample.
Here.
Mrs. Simon.
Here.
2 out.
Can we stand for the flag salute? And I'm going to put you on mute. We have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Simon. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our February 23rd Board of Education meeting. Over the course of the month of February, our Board of Education hears from specific departments in regard to preparation of their respective budgets. This evening, you'll be hearing from 3 separate areas or 3 separate departments. We'll begin tonight with transportation, and our transportation dispatcher coordinator, Marcy Cole, is here. We'll also hear from facilities, and our facilities manager, Don Race, is here. And finally, we'll talk about administration, personnel, and benefits area of the budget, and Jason Bohm will present those areas of the budget. For Board of Education members that are new, once again, if you go into the BOE portal and you click on our agenda, there are several superintendent's report documents that are related to the budget. You'll see that we'll start with transportation. It's the topmost document. If you were to click on that document, it'll open it up to the budget that was developed by Ms. Cole. And then she'll walk you through that budget line by line and talk generally about how she prepared that budget. And then we'll move on to Mr. Race's budget as well. So I'll give you an opportunity to open up that handout, and I will turn the meeting over to Marcy Cole for her budget presentation about the transportation budget. Marcy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. Hi, everybody. How are you? All right, so we will start off with the first line, student transportation ESC management. That is what we pay for Hunterdon County ESC. their share to find routes to do our out-of-district kids. The second line, the student transportation, that is our routing program, our drug and alcohol testing, and the shared services with Branchburg. The student transportation, clean, repair, maintenance, the third line, that is for our outside warranty work on buses and anything that is too big for our mechanic to handle. Our fire extinguisher services, our fire extinguishers need to be serviced once a year. And then the Division of Motor Vehicles for registration renewal every year for the buses. The next one, 270511, the Student Transportation Services Home. That is for the, we have one contracted, we have one bus, we budgeted for one bus from an out-of-district company in case we need them for anything. We have 3 contracted buses from Branchburg that help us out with our Reddington and Hollenbrook routes, morning and afternoon. And then we have one bus from Branchburg to help us out with sports during the seasons. Then if you go to the next page, page 2, transportation vendor jointure, the Hunterdon Central Aid in Lieu. This is our non-public students where the parents drive them and they get aid in lieu. They get it twice a year, they get a check, and once in January and then again in the end of the school year. And then the transportation non-public, that is for students. If one of the ESCs has a route in our area, they will put the non-public kids on a route. That we have that budgeted just in case, but we haven't had a route like that in a couple years. The next one, to the special ed transportation, Hunterdon ESC, they do most of our out-of-district routes. Then there's a line in there for an additional placement for next year, just in case. And then Somerset ESC, we occasionally use them because a lot of the times the Hunterdon ESC buses, they fill up rather quickly and the ride is longer for the kids. So occasionally we'll go to Somerset ESC. The next line down is employee travel, student transportation employee travel, which is it's seminars for the drivers, any kind of training, and for the school transportation supervisors conference. The next line down is it's the school and the insurance on the buses, and then M&W Communications, which is all the buses have two-way radios and they are on a repeater, so it just helps us understand one another a little bit better on the radio. It travels further, the signal. The next one down, just supplies, materials, just supplies for the offices. The next page 3 of 4, school bus supplies, extension cords for the buses in the wintertime, they need to be plugged in. our diesel fuel, our gasoline, and then for the shared services for the parts and fuel that we use at Branchburg. And then there's a line for parts for the mechanic. We pay for that out of that account. The next one is reimbursement for the drivers for their fingerprints, their physicals, the CDL part of their license, for permits for any new drivers once they pass and they've been here a year. Then page 4 of 4, the last page. The transportation equipment. When we buy new buses, they don't have two-way radios in them. We buy them from another company and our mechanic installs them. It's a little bit, saves money. It's a little bit cheaper. And the last line is for purchasing a school bus and a van.
Thanks, Marcy. I know that Mrs. Simon drew attention to the bus fleet list as well to the board in an email, but I'll allow if the board has any questions for Marcy regarding preparation of the budget or the fleet list.
Yeah, I have, this is Eric. I have one question. I think that it took me a little while to figure this out, but I think that the last line about the school buses regular, I think the date for this might be wrong, where it says that you're retiring it says a 54 passenger school bus, 3 retiring June 2021, along with a 16 passenger van. I think that should read 2022. If I'm reading the fleet list correctly. In 2021, we have 2 buses and 1 Jeep retiring. It's 2022 that we have 3 buses and 1 small bus one van retiring.
Sorry, unmute myself so you can hear me. There is 2 buses retiring this year. I think this may have been a typo that we didn't catch. There's 2 buses retiring this year and the Jeep.
Yes, that's what I was saying. That's the 2021 retirees, right. And then so this is 2022. And I'm just wondering, so we're not replacing all the ones that are retiring. So I mean, so that this is just a minor typo issue. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Correct. Thank you.
So we're not replacing all the vehicles that are retiring. What do we do in a case like that? Is it that we have spares available? Do we lean on Branchburg if we have need, or how does this work?
Well, this year we have, we retire the spares. The spare buses, once they hit their 15 years, we use them up until the last minute. So this year, all the buses that we're retiring are the spare buses. There are, like I said, there's 2 going, 2 retiring, and we are purchasing 3. We are purchasing 3 buses and a van this year.
Oh.
With the okay from Jason. Yeah, Jason. So to answer your question, Eric, I think it's a couple of parts, right? And I'll turn it over to Jason as well. First and foremost, if there's ever a route or if there's ever a bus or a driver needed, we can always work with Branchburg to have them help us cover, right? If in the event we get into a pinch. The second is at the end of each budget year, Jason will calculate payroll and expenses and determine if there's any excess that can be used. School buses is part of the last that we'll purchase at the end of the school year. And Jason can give you a little bit of an update. I think we updated it in the finance minutes from last time that, this year being as unordinary as it was and certain costs not being as high as we had budgeted for this time last year due to COVID, we have some money that we can put into transportation to ensure that we add to our fleet list for this current budget year. So Jason, I'll let you talk in finer details if needed, but I think I covered it.
Yeah, and I would say if everyone's mindful from a bus fleet perspective, and Marcy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have 15 or 16 total bus drivers. And in essence, we need to make sure that we have sufficient buses for them to drive on a daily basis, plus enough spares for when we have breakdowns, mechanical issues that need to be worked on over a period of time. And we also need different types of vehicles. So as long as we have sufficient spares to allow the routes to continue, in worst case, we would borrow something from Branchburg, which is why we have the shared service arrangement. But what we typically do is we look at what is the minimum we can have to operate. And I would say we are not near that at the current moment. Buses are allowed to be in service for 15 years. And if you recall, a lengthy time ago, we went from a 3-tier system to a 2-tier system. And RMS and Hollenbrook are together, and Three Bridges and White House are together. And that consolidation allowed us to, in essence, have potentially less drivers, less need for buses, and therefore we still have our bus fleet from that period of time, but we're slowly starting to condense that over time. The big concern is that if you look at 21, 22, and 23 in retirement years, there's a lot of buses coming off our fleet list. And the goal this year, given we have some savings for staff, substitutes, and athletics and some other things that have not run, ESY, summer school, those programs did not run this year. And we are basically applying those one-time savings to purchase buses this year, which is what the finance committee was briefed on in January and provided out to the public last meeting.
So would that be to replace buses that are younger than 15 years old? So replacing them before their needed replacement date?
Yes, yeah. In essence, we know that we have this large amount of buses coming off, and we are just trying to be proactive, knowing that our budget moving forward is getting extremely tight, and our ability to buy two buses in a given year is going to be very challenging moving forward. So we wanted to see how many buses we could buy this special year, given the funding that we just happen to have because of COVID.
Thank you very much for that explanation, Jason.
Hi, Marcy. Question: do you happen to know what we pay right now for the fuel for the buses?
Right now, it hasn't really changed much in the past year or so. It stayed basically the same. So I think, where is... through the township, it's still about $2.50 a gallon.
So we're paying $2.50 a gallon?
Mm-hmm.
And the 27,000 and the 13,000 rounding, is that close to what we typically use? Is that over a little bit? Basically the bottom line is, have you allocated for a bump in the price of fuel at all?
I have, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything for Marcy? Thank you, Marcy.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Marcy. That is transportation. The third attachment that board members have under the superintendent's report is the facilities budget. If you open up that budget, we'll start with Don on the first page, and he'll walk us through the preparation of his budget.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's provided some supplemental information like I always do every year. Starts with the front page, kind of gives a breakdown of a review of what the 4 different sections of the budget. There's also some other supplemental information there that I'll refer to as I'm going through. So we'll start right at the first page of my budget here. To the account line 261420008, which is our maintenance projects. These are the maintenance projects we'll be working on in the next school year. We're looking at repainting hallway lockers in the middle school, the old section of the middle school. Over at Three Bridges, we're looking from the preschool area, that wing, we're looking to some kind of walkway to go up to the playground. Right now, they have the students walking up the hill in the grass. Hollenbrook, we're looking to reupholster the gym divider. The gym divider has gotten, the upholstery there has gotten damaged, so we're looking to do some of that. We have a couple classrooms in Hollenbrook that are left that we want to get rid of the carpeting. We've been doing that in the district, getting rid of carpeting in classrooms. And then district-wide, window repairs, concrete repairs, that's our sidewalks. We're always doing sidewalk repairs every year. And then Jim has a couple projects that fall into this line as well. He has a server that's going to be replaced. And he also has a firewall router backup that's going to be installed. The next 4 lines, it was 261420. Each one represents each school. This is our required maintenance. And the 420 line is contractors we bring in to take care of stuff we don't take care of on our own, like our boilers, our refrigeration, our, the roofing, plumbers, things like that. That's some of those outside contractors, and that money set aside to pay those outside contractors. 261421, that's required maintenance supplies. That is the supplies that my guys use when they're doing repairs on the buildings. We have to have that money set aside as well. So we have money to buy the supplies they need. And this is just general maintenance. These guys, what they do is just their general maintenance work. We move down to 262300. This is our compliance line item. This is some of the things: our well water management, our right to know, asbestos, our fire alarm monitoring, or water testing services. Those items that we have consultants that work with us to make sure we stay in compliance. 262420. That's one of the biggest line items, along with energy. This is our trash removal, some of our building HVAC management systems. One of the biggest ones there you see is the custodial contract for our nighttime custodians. One of the supplemental pages has the annual breakdown we do with the cost savings of having those outside contractors come with us. And you see on that sheet that the numbers getting a little smaller, but there still is a savings to having the contracted services with us. Also, their contract ends in June. It's been 2 years since they came. We knew with the new contract. We have the option to renew them for 2 more 1-year contracts, so we can renew them for 2 more years. I've spoken with Pritchard, and they are on board, and I'm on board with renewing that contract for the next year, with whatever the increase may be. The increase there is a budgeted amount.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
You mentioned the supplemental items. Jason, do we have them in the portal? I don't see the documents he's talking about.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question, Jason. I didn't see it in there. Is it attached?
Yeah, it starts with a page that has my budget review. It has a breakdown of the 4 main budget items.
I'm actually going to email you right now. It looks like Lisa took those down yesterday evening. So they were up, but they look like they've been taken down. So I'll email you them right now.
Thank you.
And just so everybody knows, I know Don's going by gap accounting codes. We're on the middle of page 3, I would say.
Yes, we're on top of page 3, that first line item on page 3. Going down, it also takes care of our fire alarm system inspections, our fire equipment, our kitchen Ansel systems, our sprinklers, our fire extinguishers, and then some of that testing, recharging we have to do with those every year. 262490 is the next one down. These are our sewer taxes we pay for the district, our city water service for White House, our custodial mop rentals, and then elevator state inspection fees. We have to have our elevators inspected twice a year. The temporary restrooms we always get for sports when we do have sports. And then there's a couple storage container rentals. And the last one on the bottom was the ones we had to rent a couple extra containers for COVID for furniture storage. 262520. That's my part of our safe insurance and the insurance costs for the district. So we're going to move up to the top of page 4. 262580. This is travel line item for facilities for workshops and in-district travel in between the buildings. 262590. That's the software programs we use for our work order program, as well as keeping track of our energy through the energy management software. 262600. That is our custodial supplies we need, our paper products, and all the cleaning supplies we use. It also covers light bulbs for the district, light bulb disposal, anything the maintenance department supplies, and then maintenance and service on our fleet vehicles for facilities. Next one down, 621, and then 622 is energy for the district. Also, in part of that supplemental information, I always give you some historical information going back of what we paid for our energy costs for gas and electric. It goes back about 10 years worth of history, and just the graph that you can see. There's also a little, I don't know if you have them yet, but there's a couple other supplemental ones there as well. One of them is basically just a review, a comparison of our last school year, which is the 1920 school year, the energy use there, gas and electric. And this goes back and does the comparison to in 2018 and 2019 since we had the solar system up and running for a year or so, we were able to create a new baseline. So these numbers are based on that, compared to that baseline. And you'll see we're down about 17%, less use in gas. And then we're down about 1% in our electric. And these numbers are kind of messed up this year because the second half of 1920, we were shut down partially, so there was definitely different changes in those. This was not a good year to do the comparison on our baseline. Overall, you'll see that we saved about $32,000 compared to the baseline year on energy for 1920. This one page doesn't calculate solar into that. The last page that I gave you is the solar information, and this goes comparison to the baseline year. And you see, compared to the baseline year, the baseline year we spent about $388,000 on that was our electricity, and that's with the solar calculations involved. And then this past year for 1920, we were down to 356,000. And it was a very good solar production year. We had some excess that we were able to send back to the grid compared to the year before. So you see, go back in that, the budget numbers for that, we pay PSE&G, Elizabethtown Gas, and then there's also a third party gas supplier in there. For electric, we pay JCP&L, and then Amoresco is the solar PPA we have with them, and that's the cost of buying the solar from that company. Page 5, 262,800 is our association and registration fees for different organizations. 263, we're moving into grounds now. 263 line item is grounds, so 263,420. This is our contracted snow removal service we use for White House, which this year has we've spent more money this year already than we have in the past 2 years with them, only because of the amount of snow. And so I'll be very happy if it stops snowing. It also covers our grounds equipment repairs to keep our grounds equipment up and running. It also covers repairs and the inspections for Project Adventure at the middle school. It covers our playground mulch installation. We generally, spruce up the playground mulch at least twice a year. Then the other one is the snow equipment rental, which is the backhoe that we rent every winter. And then that has definitely paid for itself, 3 times, 4 times over this year, with us being able to move snow around so we can keep plowing snow. 263,600. This is our care and upkeep. This is our ground supplies. This is the ice melter that we use on our sidewalks, and the road salt we get from the township to use on the parking lots. And then just our baseball and softball field maintenance. This covers our grounds equipment parts that we need to buy. Athletic field paint for the middle school for the athletic program. Any kind of other landscaping materials, generally, mulch, plants, things like that we did. And then track maintenance supplies is also involved in there. And that's just, resupplying some of that material on top of the track. 266,300. That's our security monitoring for the district. That's Sonatrol. That's our building alarms. That's our boiler alarms. That's our walk-in refrigerator alarms for that monitoring. And then the other line item is the security patrol. That's Officer Gil Murray and Officer Harris. That's in the district for our district security. 266,420. This is we budget annually for a couple of outside security camera replacements, and generally these are ones that are outside. They're out in the weather, and some of those older ones that we originally put in 5, 6, 7 years ago now are becoming just breaking down. 266,600. This is our general security related supplies. These are things we need to buy for go kits or some of those emergency kits we're putting together for the buildings. That's just so we can replace some of those items as we need them. We're on to page 7, which is our capital outlay here. We really don't have anything budgeted for next year out of Fund 12, but we are purchasing this year some equipment like from the savings from that Jason mentioned before, that we are replacing some of our district equipment. That includes fleet vehicles, some grounds equipment, and things like that. Questions?
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, that's fine, Carol. Go ahead. I insist.
Well, it's probably the same kind of question. So, on the chart of how much electric and gas we used, in 2018, 2019, we had a spike up, at least in the electric. So my two questions are, I think you said that includes solar, this chart. So it's not related necessarily. It doesn't show us the solar savings, but do we know the reason why we were trending upward again, or why that year was an anomaly?
Yeah, a lot of and especially with gas is very weather related. So depending on the weather we had, and then that gas, if we have a chill, if I remember right, we had a chilly spring that year, as well. So, and then depending on how early it is, gas is really, especially cost is not it's very fluid. So it can rise and fall a lot.
Carol, are you asking about the spike in electric usage? Jason and Don, do you remember, and Eric, you might even remember this too. Remember the solar field at Hollenbrook? And wasn't there an issue over the course of that year with the solar field at Hollenbrook being in disrepair, or a couple of panels or several panels in disrepair because of water collection in like the retention basin or something?
I don't remember what year it occurred, and it may have been that year that we had a problem with flooding in the detention basin, which is like what it's designed to do, actually.
Right.
And so we had some issues with, and they had to raise the inverters and whatnot. But I don't know whether that was exactly coincident with that event. So we ended up having to buy more off the grid because the production off the panels was consequently lowered.
Yeah, and I don't remember either. Maybe Jason remembers, but I don't know if that's part of the explanation for there. It was a shot in the dark. I thought I recalled that.
Yeah, there was an issue early on with the solar panels behind Hollenbrook.
They were down for a month or so.
It led to some repairs with them having to come out and do some repairs.
Yeah. And they will end up truing up. We have a contracted. They have a contracted obligation for productivity, for production, I should say, and they'll true up. I think it's at the end of 5 years or whatever it is. I don't remember what the total time is. So they give us an average reduction over time. Jason, I'm sorry. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, no, that definitely occurred. What both Dr. Hart and Eric are referring to. The other thing that may be causing that spike in that particular year is, if Eric recalls, and Don, there was a period of time when we installed solar, and the electric panels were in essence overcharging us because of the type of panel that was put in. And Jody Betterman, who was our former energy coordinator, was monitoring that and had to work with JCP&L over a period of 6 to 8 months to get that resolved, because there was, we could see the increase in electric charges. So in essence, what we were getting charged for solar and the grid was had increased year over year in terms of kilowatt hours. So it was a big red flag on, we're suddenly using a ton more electricity in the building, which didn't make sense. And eventually that got resolved, and there was some credits and other things issued, which is why you might see that bump up in that time and then all of a sudden a drop down because of the credit being issued later on. But that also could have contributed to that bump in that year.
It appeared that they were not giving us full credit for the production off the panels, but then they were also charging us for what we were pulling down off the grid. and through the valiant efforts of Jody and Don trying to true up the bills, it was. But again, I don't remember, what year it was. After a while, it all starts mashing into one timeline, and I don't, whether it happened in 1819 or 1617. I can't tell you.
Well, I do remember that, and Jason hit my point. Was I wanted to make sure that issue, the one where we were getting charged more for, and even than what we were using, I wanted to make sure that we had gotten those credits. So
Yeah, that's all been resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, and it ended up being a metering issue. With the way that the meters were reading what we were using, it was almost like we were being double billed at some point. We did get that fixed. Actually, they came out and changed all the meters for that's connected to the solar system, just to make sure that doesn't happen again, and it hasn't happened since.
That's great. So, Carol, have you asked your questions? I've got a couple. Are you
Yes,
done?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. First, I just got those graphs done, so I reserve the right to comment on them at a later date. So I may not, but I just reserve the right. I want to put that placeholder there on the record. A couple of questions on the trash removal and the recycling contracts. Where are we in that cycle? And I'll just get to the end point here. As you know, because you were in the Green Committee subcommittee meeting, that there's a question about whether or not we may start having the cafeteria waste alternatively disposed. And so I was just wondering, where do we stand in the contracting timeline? I can't remember whether we've just started those contracts or at the end of the contracts. I have trouble following. Could you please?
Actually, the end of the contract comes up at the end of the calendar year.
So this is a propitious time for us to have this discussion then.
Yeah, we can have this discussion with the trash haulers but yeah, we'll have to talk to them about that, because
Okay.
what they, on what our especially with the recycling.
Okay, I mean, I know that we're just now in the process of actually a food service contract, and that I know, and it would be nice to have both of them simultaneous. But I think probably more to the point is the waste hauling contract. But I just want to establish that for the moment. The next question.
Just one more comment about trash is that that'll be a 3-year contract when it's renewed. So, I mean, that kind of falls in kind of perfectly, but I think by the time we get everything up and running, it'll be probably near the end of the next contract. And we might be able to have a better sense of composting and, food waste removal and things like that to work on those numbers with the trash hauler.
So, well, when I give my minutes, I don't want to take time from this, because when we talk about the minutes, I'll bring that up again. I just wanted to, I try to compartmentalize my discussions and not hijack them. I'm sure people appreciate that. The next question was the Energy Manager software. So I know that Jody used to do that, and who is it? I believe, if I'm not correct, is it now Jason, Don? Are you guys running the Energy Management software now?
Yeah. I'm working with that, and then Andrea Arano in our office is doing the data inputting to get all the data in there.
Okay, that's great. And then last thing was when we did the solar contract, I think we were paying initially 9 cents. We contracted for 9 cents per kilowatt or something to that effect, and then there was some sort of an escalator of some percent per annum. And then I was just wondering if you had any sort of a gut feel, either now or if you get to later, where we are now as to how much we're paying per kilowatt hour, and also then, and what is the price that we're paying off the grid? Because, there were certain assumptions that were made in the solar contracting that it would be cheaper to get our electricity off of the panels than off the grid. And I would just like to see if the assumptions in that, have borne out. I don't expect you to have that off the top of the head. But I mean,
right off the top of my head, it's about 12, 13 cents from the utility,
Yeah.
and we're paying right now just over 8 cents for solar.
Sounds like a good deal to me. Thanks, guys.
Don, I had a question about the contaminated wells, and does that factor in at all to the budgeting, or how does that work?
That's part of our water testing line item. That's budgeted in there. So all that water testing is budgeted in there.
Hi, Don. I got a quick question about the custodial services. If I remember correctly, about 2 years ago, I guess when the last contract was done, there was some discussion about it getting close to it not being the best budget spending to have this service. And you did mention that we're getting close. I mean, how close are we getting to this maybe not being a feasible process to be going through? I mean, there's a large chunk of money that we're spending on custodial service for after hours.
It looks like it's in there, Don. Is that
Yeah.
65,000?
It's like 65,000, and that number was based on we just threw a 5% increase in there. It's not going to be that much. It's probably going to be less, so that number is probably going to go anywhere from that 65 to about 85.
Okay, thank you.
Probably, I would say we'll probably be looking at it, after we can renew the current company for 2 more years. So then they would have to go back out the bid again. So, I don't know if the numbers would ever be close enough, but they are getting closer since we first started this.
And how many years have we been with this current company?
This company is 2 years.
That's it, just 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, just 2 years.
Any other questions for Don? Thank you very much, Don.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Marcy. For the next area of the budget that Jason will present is administration, personnel, and benefits. There are several documents that Jason will walk you through that include administration, payroll, benefits, staffing. So I'll turn it over to him.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll just preface for the newer board members, there are documents in here that are confidential in nature. Some of the personnel changes will be highlighted in mid-March when we do our public budget presentation. So if you ever have if you ever think that you may be asking something that's confidential, you can always wait for executive session this evening if it relates to personnel. But otherwise, feel free to ask a question and I will do my best to answer. So the first attachment is a confidential memo. It's called Major Budget Modifications. And I provide this to the Finance Committee when we first do our first review of the budget. And it highlights major changes in the budget relating to personnel and programs. I'm not going to go line by line through here, but if you open up that attachment, it's separated into initiatives, which are a lot of things that we want to do next year. And then there's recurring and remaining in the budget, which is things that currently exist in the budget that have a significant impact on our budget. And an example of that would be we recently settled our contract with the RTEA. So those staff members are obtaining a overall 3% increase, although it depends on what their step is. The actual increase they'll get could be more or less. As well as health benefits and other things that we'll be getting into in more detail. And then you have the department area budgets, which we're presenting individually. And then near the bottom, some things that we will highlight when we have our public board meeting. These are things that, we've decided relate to COVID or other initiatives that we're going to get creative in providing some services to the staff as well as the students moving forward. But this one-page memo basically summarizes everything that's changing in the budget year over year. If you have very specific questions on this, I would wait for the most part until executive session. The next attachment is salaries and regular payroll budget. Not to sound like a broken record, but this is mostly confidential because if there's a significant change here, and by significant, I mean plus or minus higher than 3 to 3.5%, those changes relate to program changes or staffing changes, which will be highlighted in public next month. But something that I can share now overall is if you scroll down, that is 19 pages in total. Each area of that has a different salary. So the first page is about health benefits, and those are our nurse salaries. Then there's related services staff, which is speech therapists, behaviorists. So if you're going down this, you can see kind of what area the salaries relate to, and the impact is the percent change on the right side. Most of the time, the increase relates to the contractual union increase that is mandated. And if you see a large swing, those relate to program changes that we are determining to move forward with next year as of now. So I would expect questions on those. Some of those things do tie into personnel confidential minutes, if you've read them in the past, as well as the one-page memorandum. But scrolling down to the last page, which is page 19, you can see that overall the increase is minimal. It's less than 2%. So you may question, how are we giving out 3% raises while increasing the budget less than 2%? And it's creative accounting. No, it's it has to do with breakage. It has to do with people that are retiring, that we hire younger, less experienced staff that are lower on the guide. There are things of that nature where we do realize savings that allow us to pay those larger raises to staff. So that's how we're able to accomplish a 3% raise for staff while maintaining a tax levy increase of less than 2%. So that did help us this year in making budget. So you'll see overall, less than 2% for salaries. I would defer your questions on salaries until executive session, and we can go on to any line here specifically. The next attachment is called Central Administration Budget. Actually, this is a public document, so you can, it's not public, but you can ask questions about this. This central administration has to deal with Dr. Hart's superintendent area of the budget, as well as my own business office area of the budget. So there's 4 pages here. The first page deals with legal, as well as audit fees, architect fees, software for maintaining substitutes and hiring, as well as postage, machines and mailings. And you can see from the first page, there has been some decreases here. Some of these decreases are not real. So when you see a decrease of, say, 41%, that is mainly because of transfers in the current year. It is not a real change year over year. If you actually go back to the budget document last year, those items are relatively flat. Fogarty and Harrow, there's been a little bit of trimming there, but mainly the differences, the first three that are large, have to do with transfers that happened in the current school year, not actual decreases in the overall budget. The increases on page 2 are mostly minimal. You have growth in travel for Dr. Hart. You have conferences, and that is for board members. You have the fall conference down at New Jersey School Boards in Atlantic City. Then you have our increase for our insurance, our general liability insurance, which is 3% on page 2. And scrolling down further, most of these other changes are minimal. For page 3, you have dues for Garden State Coalition of Schools, which we've discussed in the past whether or not we want to be part of, as well as you'll see the mandatory state dues for New Jersey school boards. So we currently pay a significant amount in dues to that organization that is mandated by law, and that's allows us to get free resources, but free is never free. And then the 251 sections on page 3 and 4 moving forward are my business office area. You have Phoenix Advisor, which is debt and bonding advisors and disclosure requirements. We use a third party to comply with that. Then we have the accounting software, which is around $18,000. Is a very low cost overall compared to other softwares that are out there. Then you have travel for myself and my office, copier costs, and then office supplies. And the last page is dues and fees. Overall, this area is relatively flat. If you look on page 4, it shows a large decrease, but that large decrease is mainly because of transfers in the current year, which are on page 1. Really flat year over year. Does anyone have any questions on this document? I can talk about this document in detail if you need anything specific.
Jason, just a quick question. On page 3, it appears that you have listed the, let me just get back. I've got so many windows open here. It's hard to tell. It appears that the facilities software is listed, School Dudes Facilities Planning Software is listed here in, I don't know how to, soup, serve, admin, perch, tech, whatever. This is 11-000-251-340. But I thought that Don also had that in his budget.
He does. I believe there's 2 different parts of this software. But what I can do is go back, Eric, and give you why it's budgeted in 2 different areas. I believe there's 2 different functionalities. One has to do with work orders, and the other one I think has to do with another aspect, which is why it's budgeted in 2 different areas. But I can research that to make sure it's not duplicated.
Yeah,
I believe it is.
I'm not sending them 2 purchase orders for the same thing.
Yes.
Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions on administrative, central administration? The next attachment is the substitutes budget. This budget we can talk about in public right now if you like. I'm not going to go line by line through here, but there are 10 different pages of substitutes. Substitutes are the same, but we pay different rates. So we currently pay a significant amount for nurse substitutes, we're on average with the state and county for paying our regular substitutes for teachers and paraprofessionals. But what we have budgeted, if you scroll to the last page, on page 10, there's a 7% increase budgeted, which equals almost $34,000. And this increase has to do with the finance committee reviewed and wants to roll out proactively a increase in wages over the next several years. Has to do with minimum wage requirements in the state as well. So the minimum wage is going up to $15 an hour over the next several years in New Jersey, and the board wants to stay ahead of that curve, as well as pay more competitively to attract substitutes. So you'll see that's that 7% increase overall has to do with an increase in wages for substitutes. So our substitute rate wages will be on a board agenda in the near future, May or June, and you will likely see this line increase between 7 and 8% or more in the next several years, and that is relating to the minimum wage increase. So our substitutes are going to get a rather large increase in pay. Which is good for them, and also will help us attract, some highly qualified, substitutes to keep schools open and running well. Questions on substitutes?
Jason, so our substitutes are paid minimum?
No. So the minimum wages is inching up, and what finance committee did was look at the number of hours that each substitute position pays. And, there are positions on a day that work 6.5 hours in a day. And there's other substitute positions that work 7.5 hours in a day. And if you calculate minimum wage based on certain positions, there was one category that was getting close to the minimum wage threshold. And what the finance committee decided to do was to increase all of the wages gradually over time to stay up with that, in order to not have an increase directly impacting one category of substitutes, but rather take a holistic approach and look at all the categories. So pressure on one category from minimum wage caused an expansion overall.
Thank you.
And it has less to do with, it has to do more with the hours worked in a day than, than anything. The next item, if you pull up, is a stipends budget. And this budget we can talk about in public if you like. This has to do with different stipends for different activities during the course of a school year. So you'll see there's 8 different pages to this. You have athletic, physical, and sports coverage. You have summer IEP meetings and extra pays. Some of these increases relate to increases in the salaries for the RTEA contract, and mandate that we need to increase, therefore, the extra pays, because some of the extra pays relate to hourly rates, while other extra pays do not. There are some that do relate to hourly rates. So you'll see some increases there that average 3%, such as on the first page. Then you have a page number 2 talks about curriculum stipends, which actually went over by the curriculum department in the earlier February meeting. so I won't touch base on page number 2, which is curriculum writing. And page number 3 is also a duplicate of the curriculum department. It's just the way the software pulls out reports. I can't edit these out. But page number 3 was gone over. These are staff development stipends for teacher academies. So the large increase that you see on that first line on page 3 is the coordinator of green initiatives and sustainability stipend of $4,000, which Betsy Freeman was the coordinator this current school year. That was the primary driver of that 45% increase. Page number 4 is relatively flat. There's no major changes there. Page number 5, there is some increases there for the major increases there have to do with field trip beyond contractual hours. So that was part of the RTEA contractual settlement. There are some additional extra pays required under that contract. So we have budgeted for those for when we get back to providing in-person field trips, hopefully next school year when coronavirus is less of a concern. So page 5 and 6, the increases you see there have to do with the last line that says field trips beyond contractual hours. Then you have page number 7, which talks about head coach stipends and athletic coordinator stipends. And overall, there's an increase of around 4% or $17,000. Primarily, that increase has to do with RTEA contract negotiation settlements and us just budgeting for those natural increases relating to that. Is there any questions on stipends or any specific line? I promise we're almost done. Overtime budget is the next attachment. There's only one page there. We did budget some increase in overtime. It's a $5,000 increase. We have spent a great deal of extra pays on overtime dealing with coronavirus and extra cleaning and extra maintenance in the building. So we just wanted to reflect more actual amounts moving forward in case we need them next year as well. At some point, this amount may go down a little bit, but to be conservative, we wanted to ensure that we had a budget for that next year. Questions on overtime? And the last item is our ESY budget. That's the last attachment. It's 3 pages long. And you'll see there's this ESY budget has to deal with summer coverage. This is our special needs population, the IEP programming that requires attention over the summer for specific services. Overall, that increase on the last page increased a significant amount, which is $7,700, which is approximately 6%. The vast majority of that increase, though, has to do with something new on the last page. On page 3, it says intervention transportation. So I believe that is public information that we may be enhancing our ESY program this coming school year, and the need for some additional costs relating to that has been built into the budget. So that's the driver of that increase. Overall, what I would do is, reflect back on the major modifications memo at the beginning, as well as the confidential finance minutes that you have available to you. And if you have any questions on that, we can discuss in executive session, and you can also email me directly or contact me directly to go over that. Is there any other questions though right now? Well, thank you for your time.
So this concludes our budget presentations for this evening. Transportation, facilities, administration, personnel, and benefits. For all the board members, but particularly newer board members, you have now received a close look at the budget preparation documents in anticipation for the March 16th board meeting. The next step is the governor has provided his budget address today. We anticipate that our software will have our figures for state aid, which is part of our revenue, in the budget software in the next couple of days. Between now and March 16th, Jason and I will review with the Finance Committee one more time our expenditures, our revenues, the final budget, and develop the presentation. And all of this line item by line item by line item culminates in a presentation to the board of our tentative budget in preparation for next year. And that happens on March 16th. So that really gives you the high-level highlights of all of the detail that you've received over the course of the past 2 board meetings. So that's the next stage of the process. So moving forward with my superintendent's report, I'm going to provide to the board a COVID update. As you know, we opened yesterday for expanded in-person learning to grades K through 5. And we also got some snow, which made it interesting. So it was like the first day of school all over again, combined with snow at dismissal time. So I wanted to walk you through 3 primary things this evening and related to COVID and our reopening. I want to share with you our current attendance numbers. In other words, those who are actually attending in person, the steps that we took on setting up classrooms and our progress, and then the metrics that we continue to watch as we reopen schools more fully at this stage of the school year. So what is enrollment looking like right now? Here's an updated chart for you regarding those who are fully virtual, students that are fully virtual, and students that are attending 4 days of in-person. The totals may not quite equal 100%. These are the numbers that were most recent as of Friday when I published this presentation to you on the board agenda. But one thing to point out, when I reported to you either early February or back in January, the number of students that were fully virtual, that was the number of students that we used as our gauge or a metric to determine who we thought was going to be coming back 4 days. So at Reddington Middle School right now, we anticipate 16% of students are going to remain fully virtual. When we had done our survey earlier in the school year, we had 23% that were fully virtual, and that's what I reported to you last time. So we are now seeing more students return for in-person instruction. Hollenbrook was relatively the same. When I reported to you in January, it was at 19%. We're at 16% fully virtual. Three Bridges was 20% fully virtual, and it is now 14% fully virtual. And White House School was 25% fully virtual and is now 17% fully virtual. What does this mean? It means that more students than we had anticipated are actually returning for 4 days a week of in-person instruction. So those are some updated numbers for you. So the steps that we've taken to expand in-person learning. So you'll recall that when we were discussing this in January, I outlined a plan for the first phase, which was to return to yellow. And yellow refers to the activity report that's published weekly from the Department of Health. My plan included slow, methodical process for reopening school, and we were waiting for the activity report to turn to yellow before we started to deploy that plot process. So yellow represents a moderate COVID activity level. It is an improved color from orange, but it is not green, which is low levels. And one of the key factors in waiting for the return to yellow is that we're no longer contact tracing presumptive positive cases, which was one of the things that was updated from the Department of Health. The other thing that I didn't include as well here is the quarantine period while we're in the yellow phase is 10 days for those individuals who are close contacts as well. We are still talking with families or staff about a possible 14-day quarantine. That had been the standard and is still something that the Department of Health likes us to engage in conversation with families and staff members. But the guideline is 10 days. So 14 if possible, unless it's a hardship, 10 days is the minimum standard. And the activity report turned yellow on February 6th and maintained yellow on February 13th, which is good news that we're signaled heading in the right direction. So our work on making plans, some of the things that we have done in the interim. So from January to now reopening this past Monday, I had contacted other districts to learn about their protocols and procedures. And some of the districts that I spoke to are districts that had more in-person learning, 4 days a week or 5 days a week, some even full days, to talk about some of the protocols that allowed it to be possible in their districts, and modeled some of our plan after their protocols. So it was good to talk to other superintendents. We did that survey of families to determine who would return in person. So those are the numbers that I reported to you on one of the first slides in the presentation, which suggests that we actually have more students returning for in-person instruction than we had anticipated. We completed classroom setup, moving desks into rooms. So as you recall, and Jason pointed out with maintenance, we removed desks out of classrooms in preparation for the fall. All of those desks needed to go back into the classroom, and they were staged in the classroom according to a certain classroom design that is ideal, that I'll show to you in just a minute. Marcy revised transportation routes to include more students taking the bus. And we've ordered desk barriers for all student desks in the district. We have even ordered extras just in case there's any damage or in case we need extras for other areas, around the school, to make sure that everybody has a desk barrier and that they are being used. Just a review, as I show you, the next slide has a sample classroom setup. So in the yellow phase of reopening, the 6-foot guideline is not possible in all classrooms. We got 6 feet where we could. If we were unable to get 6 feet, we just weren't able to do it, although we designed our classrooms to maximize space as much as possible. And this depended on the number of students who remained virtual and the size of the classroom as well. So our goal was to shoot to approximately 4 feet. Some places there might be 3 feet, but we did make a promise to, as best as possible, keep the teacher's area 6 feet from the first row of student desks. So a sample classroom looks a little bit like this. You'll see, moving from right to left, the teacher's desk, the smartboard, and possibly a kidney table or some other table, all in the front of the room behind a line. And that represents that the teacher's area is 6 feet from the first row of student desks. So what you'll notice is this was our goal, right? So this is the ideal classroom setup if we could get it. It is the standard that we shot for, but it was not possible in every single classroom depending on the size of the classes. We aimed to have students have 6 feet in one direction, which was side to side. So shoulder to shoulder, our goal was to have students have 6 feet of distance. However, behind them from front to back, we moved desks closer. So there's approximately 3 to 4 foot distance from front to back of the student. The reason for this was the barrier, we believe, is a greater protection front to back because it's in front of the student's face. There are side pieces to the barriers, right? They do come about 8 inches on the side of the desks, but if a student turns their head or moves their chair back, there's really no barrier side to side. So that's why we tried to keep the 6-foot distance on the sides. In addition, if we need to contact trace, if we know we have a 6-foot distance in one direction, it may assist us in contact tracing and perhaps less quarantine for students on the side, on each side. This is a classroom at White House School. This classroom has, I counted it a moment ago, probably 15 or 16 desks in it right now, spaced apart as much as possible. You'll notice that there's a little bit more space between the desks, from side to side, because that's where we shot to get the 6 feet. But front to back, there's a little bit less, approximately 3 to 4 feet. And it's hard to see because they are literally clear plastic, but there are clear plastic barriers on every student desk, and they are taped down with this double-sided sticky tape that came with the barriers. This is a, I believe, 2nd grade classroom at Three Bridges School. Again, this is a classroom that doesn't have 20 students. It has maybe 12, 13, 14 students in it. You'll see even little red lines of tape on the ground where the student desks are to be positioned. And again, those little white tabs that are on the student desk are the double-sided sticky tape that are holding the desks, or the plexiglass barriers, the plastic barriers to the top of the desk. And then this is Hollenbrook School. This one is a larger classroom. About 20 to 22 students are in this classroom. You'll see again, we got the distance as best as possible between students side to side, but you'll see there's a little less distance from front to back in this particular classroom. So these are the photos of some sample classrooms. Don and his crew right now are working on setting up the middle school classrooms with the maximum number of desks for the class size. And then as we go through the first week, next week with RMS, desks will be rearranged or moved as students remain fully virtual or opt for fully virtual. But we've got all of the desks that we're placing in RMS as well. So this is a general outline of our classroom setup. Some metrics and reminders. This will be a slow, deliberate expansion process. We are 2 days in right now at the elementary K-5 buildings, and we are still learning, and we are still making adjustments. So this time in yellow is really being used to evaluate our efforts, collect some data, and make adjustments for student and staff safety as needed. This has become a real fluid process. Nothing is perfect, but what we are striving for is continuous improvement no matter what, for the safety of our staff and our students. So there may be some adjustments, some tweaks, and some changes that may be coming, but really it's going to be something that we're going to monitor and we're going to adjust as we move forward. The next phase of reopening, perhaps having virtual Wednesdays become an in-person day, is still yet to be determined. I would like to give us some solid time to evaluate how we're doing with this phase of reopening, having all students back 4 days a week on an early dismissal schedule. And we'll evaluate to see when and if we decide to use virtual Wednesdays as an in-person day. This is the activity report from February 6th. It just gives you a visual. This is what we're going to monitor week from week. This is our COVID activity. You'll see on February 6th, 2 regions have turned yellow. On February 13th, a 3rd region has turned yellow. So if you look at Cape May, Atlantic, and I want to say Gloucester or Salem County down south, that region had also turned yellow on February 13th. Which is a signal in the right direction that 3 out of the 6 regions of the state have turned yellow. And this is a reminder of our exclusion matrix. So this is a page out of the Department of Health handbook. This is our resource that assists us with quarantine time for students and exclusion timelines for students. This is updated often by the Department of Health. The last update was back on January 19th. And this gives our school nurses guidance so that they can provide guidance to staff and or families that are either experiencing symptoms or come in close contact with a positive case. And then here's the dashboard. Just to give you an update, this is the dashboard that was taken back on February 18th. You'll notice under cases and trends, our daily new cases in February on this particular day, the 18th, was 2,746 new cases in the entire state. This is down. The last time I believe I reported this to the board, my snapshot was from sometime mid-January, which was almost 7,000 new cases daily in the state on that particular snapshot. Our transmission rate is 0.91. I checked today. I want to say that we've fallen into the 0.8s. I want to say anywhere between 0.85 to 0.89 is our transmission rate today. And cases by county, you'll see I highlighted Hunterdon County where they cite, I want to say 30 new confirmed cases in our county. So, you know, when we say we're talking about data that indicates or signals that things are headed in the right direction in regard to COVID outbreaks and COVID transmission, you know, this is one of the dashboard is one of the metrics that we use to monitor, and I check this every day to look for some of the reports. Again, I'm seeing a trend where we're at 2,000 new cases a day, sometimes falling below 2,000 new cases a day, which is a signal that things are moving in the right direction and gives us confidence that we can move forward with our expanded reopening plans, like bringing all of the students back 4 days a week. And then this is the schools tab in the dashboard. You'll see 144 school outbreaks and then 686 cases linked to school outbreaks. This is from last week as well. And you'll see that there are 2 confirmed outbreaks in Hunterdon County. These are the number of outbreaks that occurred in our county that we know are related to school transmission. Again, this is a relatively low number. Last I reported to you, it was in the hundreds. I want to say it was in the hundreds and 110s or 120s. And now it's about 144 school outbreaks. And finally, that's just my brief update for everyone. I'll say that I was around the buildings yesterday, White House, Three Bridges, and Hollenbrook. You know, all of the students are back. I have to say it feels different having the classrooms pretty full of students. It does feel different. It's almost like we've forgotten what it was like to have classrooms almost full of kids. But I have to say, when I stopped in teachers' classrooms, both the teachers and the students were thrilled to be back. It was almost like the first day of school all over again, where students got to meet their classmates that they only got to see virtually, some of them, over the course of the school year. So it was really fun to be around the buildings. I saw a lot of excitement for being back for in-person learning. And the second thing I just want to mention to the board too is a huge and heartfelt thank you to the facilities and custodial department and maintenance departments. Not only have they spent the past several weeks moving feet of snow, but they also really hustled over the weekend, this past weekend, clearing snow and then staging and setting up every single classroom so it was ready for the teachers on Monday. They have worked countless hours to move desks back into classrooms and to make sure that the classrooms were ready for students on Monday. And they deserve a huge thank you because they worked very, very hard in order to do this. And they did it, and really they did it having to clear snow as well, including yesterday. So that concludes my COVID update. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a quick question, well, or a comment really. As far as the dismissal times and drop-off times because of the extra parents that are driving their students to school, I don't know if there's a way to streamline those processes, or if another solution might be to somehow make the buses, add some plexiglass or plastic somehow to the buses so that more families feel safer putting their kids on the bus. I think we've done a lot in the schools, but if, you know, I see the lines and I'm in the lines, you know, if it's
if it's something we could do to help get the kids, I don't know, trying to fix that problem.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, well said, Carol. And I'll go back to one of the slides I had, right? We'll do everything we can. We know that adjustment has to happen, right? Here we are,
Right.
Our second day of bringing over half our district back for in-person instruction. We've got everybody, almost everybody back, and in fact, more than we thought. It's going to need adjustment, and it's going to take a little time to find an adjustment, and it's going to be even more crowded with RMS next week as well, because then we have a lot of students at student drop-off and pick-up. We're trying new things, and as we try new things, we realize what works and what doesn't. So, yeah, I mean, we'll keep trying. We'll try to figure something out. And Jason, let's do some research and see if there's anything we can add to the buses. I mean, if there's something we can add, I don't know, but if we can try to reassure parents that it's safe on the bus, and that may help with our long lines. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I had just a follow-up with Carol, because I used to be in the lines, but now I'm on the bus. I'm just curious, what is kind of the protocol, or what's the standard for the busing?
So when we're on the buses, so there's students get on the bus, there are extra masks if students need them. There is hand sanitizer that students get it's a big like gallon jug. They get a squirt as they get on the bus. We do our best to load the buses from rear to front, or in order that they're going to be dismissed from the buses, so that students aren't passing each other as much. And we're also trying to seat students on the buses in assigned seats by family, so that one family of students are all sitting together. And when it's not freezing cold out or snowing, we open up the windows on the bus just to get some fresh air in between, or during the ride as well. There is a barrier for the driver, and we do have those electrostatic sprayers that we spray in between bus runs as well.
Okay, but I just mean there's no set spacing, number that you're aiming for spacing between students or seats or any of that sort of thing?
No, I mean, we try to maintain as much space as possible, and that's what the drivers will maintain their seating charts and space students out the best they can. But we have so many students that are coming back now and that are on the buses for transportation that it just makes 6 feet impossible. When we had half the students, we were able to do it a little bit better and seat students as far away as possible, and we don't have that minimum spacing requirement now. We're doing the best we can to try to seat them as far apart as possible, but they're in pretty close together. And some buses are relatively full. Other buses may only have, I think I talked to Marcy yesterday, some buses may have 10, 15 students on it. Other buses may have 30 to 40 students on it. Okay. Any other questions? But continuous improvement. I mean, we'll continue to adjust, just like we did back in September, right? We didn't know what we were walking into back in September. We've slowly brought more students back. Now that it's January, we're bringing more students in. We'll have to adjust as well. Any other questions about reopening? I just want to bring the board's attention to the district calendar for 21-22. We're talking about the 21-22 school year, which is exciting. The district calendar is agenda item 6.02 for approval tonight. And I want to confirm, as I spoke last time, that we have coordinated with the sending districts to Hunterdon Central and to Hunterdon Central to have our calendars align as much as possible. I do feel that we got major breaks aligned, exactly, so that everyone's on, their break at the same time from Readington and Flemington and Hunterdon Central. There are a couple of professional development days, contingency snow days that may not align perfectly, but we gave it our best effort to align as much as we could with Hunterdon Central. And then finally, you're welcome, Carol. Tonight, you'll see on the agenda, we say farewell to Andy Saunders, one of our board members. Andy was elected to the Board of Education and began his post in January of 2019. He served on the Policy and Communications Committee and the Education Technology Committee. He came to the district with experiences in both law enforcement and in education. His input was always thoughtful and appreciated. It's been wonderful to get to know Andy over the past several years. I'd like to wish him well. He's due to become a dad very soon, which is very exciting for him and his family. So I just wanted to recognize Andy and his contributions and thank him for his service to the board. Thank you, Andy. And I don't think he's here, but we'll say thanks. And I mentioned to the board that the governor gave his budget address today. So this is really just hot off the press that his budget address signals a budget that's been looked upon positively by my association, Jason's association. We remain optimistic that we'll be able to deliver a final budget based on what we've presented to the board over the past 2 board meetings. And we'll find out our final state aid numbers in the next couple weeks. And that's all I have for my superintendent's report. Mrs. Simon, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are now open to the public. This will be limited to action items on the agenda. We don't have any comments yet that I see, right? So if, as we move along, if there's additional comments, we have an additional time that's open to the public at the end of the meeting. So we can address them then. We didn't have any correspondence since our last board meeting. Moving along, we have administrative reports. Can I get a motion to adopt 1.01 through 1.02, please?
So moved, Carol.
So moved. Second, Tom.
Carol and Tom. Great. Are there any questions on those items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll? Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski, Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to the minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt 2.01 to 2.02, please?
So moved, Carol.
Second, Tom.
Thank you. Are there any changes required for the minutes? No, not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes. Finance and facilities. Can I get a motion to adopt 3.01, please?
So moved, Tom.
Second, Carol.
Are there any questions on that item? And we didn't have a report. We had 2 reports last time. So, any questions on the bill list? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes. Education technology. can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 to 4.04, please?
So moved, Tom.
Second, Carol.
Thank you. And we had a committee report last time, so we don't have one now, right? Right, Carol?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on those items on the agenda? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Temple,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Passes.
Personnel. Can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.03, please?
So
So
moved.
So moved. Camille had it.
Okay, so Camille is, who's second?
Carol.
Carol. Okay, thank you. And we did not have a meeting. We have one later this week. Are there any questions on the agenda items? Roll call, please.
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Temple,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes. My dog starts growling at whoever whoever's dog that was. Okay. Communications. Can I get a motion to adopt 6.01 to 6.02, please?
So moved,
moved,
Carol.
Well, and who's second?
Tom.
Tom. Thank you. All right. No committee report, right? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on those items?
I just
You
had
have
a
your-
comment. Oh,
I was just gonna say we have the policies and the calendar. So go ahead.
right, right. So my comment is on the calendar. I just wanted to say that I noticed the hours as the second page. I really like that. I think that, when parents see a half day and then they're like, wait a minute, what time do I pick up? Or, what time do I have to be at the bus? So I just wanted to comment that I liked having hours on that also.
Yeah, years past, I would have to scramble and look for that document separately. So it was good to put them together. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Are there any questions on those items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Temple,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Yes.
Passes.
Unfinished business. Last time we discussed the board self-evaluation. There was mixed, I would say mixed feedback. It basically, we were considering on whether to do it with the new board members or wait a year. So I had sent out the email with the information. I only heard back from one board member though. So we're kind of back in a similar place as we were last time. So we kind of have to make a decision, hopefully tonight, so it doesn't continue, and we can move on to either do the evaluation or put it off for a year. If we move forward, there's going to be a lot on there that the new board members are not aware of or they have not been exposed to. So the majority of their answers would be not applicable. So I throw it back to you. If you want to do a straw poll, and then we can move on to another item. So who is in favor of doing the self-evaluation? Raise your hand. One. Eric's
I
on
have
the
a-
fence.
I have an idea about it,
Mhm.
just to send out even a blank or the prior evaluation, just so that new members can see it and see the kinds of things, because I think that was more of what we were looking to get. And after looking at the questions, you know, a big part of what my takeaway from it was what you can, how you see yourself and what you can do, right? Self-reflection. So, you know, for the new board members and with Andy, that would be a hard question to answer. But that was just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I agree with Carol. I mean, I think to some extent it would be sort of like formatting a hard drive. You know, then people can see what is expected of them. And, you know, I don't like to try to repeat what I said last time, but I think that there's merit for the new members in seeing it, the questions that are asked. I don't know that filling it in has, as you pointed out, Laura, that most would be not applicable. You know, for some of us who've been on the board a long time, we've done it several times, and you know, we kind of understand our role in this endeavor. But I definitely think that it should be shared, and the new members should read it and take it seriously. It is an important endeavor.
Okay, so when you say shared, you want us to pull one of the old completed ones from prior boards and send those out as an example? I want to make sure I understand.
I just meant the blank one, but I mean, I don't remember what the old ones, you know, said. I don't know that they're relevant. I mean, you know, part of it's interaction with the superintendent. I don't think that we filled one in with our interactions with Jonathan. So Dr. Hart. So I don't think that's relevant. You know, our interaction with him is unique and is not the same as it has been with previous superintendents.
Okay, so we have 3 other members. We have Tom, Anthony, and Camille. What are you good with going forward with the evaluation? It takes a little bit of time. Like you know, it's
Yeah, if I
not
could say it,
1, 2, 3.
a thought. I remember the first time that I did it, you know, a number of years ago. I had no idea what I was doing with it. I can remember when we reviewed them, I knew exactly what answers were mine. Everything was like a one-word answer, like yes, no, maybe, and because I had no idea what we're supposed to be filling out. So if anybody who doesn't know, the new members, has an opportunity to see how they were filled out, I think would be very beneficial. Because, like I said, everyone knew my answer on those things. I was the new guy who didn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, so there's a grading system, and at the very end of each section, there's a question. You're supposed to provide your comments, and yes, some board members, they opt for NA in that position, or other ones, you know, they will have elaborate responses because maybe, you know, that section really hit home with them and they had more experience in that section based on whatever committee that they were in, or if there was an ad hoc committee, or they worked closer with a particular, you know, maybe closer with the superintendent. So they were able to provide greater insight for that particular section. Not everybody does that, but I don't know, Jason, or go ahead.
No, and I think that there were some members who did not have particular chemistry with prior superintendents, and that would be reflected in there. And I think that, you know, if you choose to share, and you've got, you know, my power of attorney, Laura, if you review them and decide that you want to share them, that's fine. But it should be understood by anybody who reads them that the comments about relationships with the superintendent, or et cetera, it's a different person. And, you know, please understand it with that. And I do want to ask that question specifically, though, of Dr. Hart. Would it have value for you? Because that's important. for you to review the board self-evaluation? If we were to do it, do you think it would have value for you to review it?
So I think that this board knows that I, always seek an opportunity for feedback. And I think that that opportunity will come certainly with the CSA evaluation, which you'll also do probably around the same time as the board self-evaluation. But I would also say too, to Tom's point and what others have pointed out, there are several new board members, and I don't know if I've developed a relationship yet, with new folks. I mean, we're working on it. Certainly, I hope positively and productively. So I think that might be an area where if we find a lot of NAs, I think I'll probably see what board members who I've worked with over the past 3 years, will have to say, and we may get an NA or not applicable because some new board members may not have had the opportunity to have that much interaction. Here it is, March, April kind of thing. So, but whatever the board wishes, whatever the feedback is, I can certainly always, take it and adjust. But know that should you not do the board self-evaluation, you do have an opportunity for feedback in my evaluation. So it's not like the opportunity will be missed.
True.
I have a question. What's the time frame? When would it be due?
That one is a little bit more free for timing as opposed to the superintendent evaluation. There are hard deadlines on that one. We try to wrap it up before the end of the year. So they kind of go in the same, channel.
I mean, I personally think that any type of evaluation is a good process to go through because, like you said, there's always going to be new people. And Andy's just left now. You just never know, how many people are going to be new or not new. But I think it's at one point, we're all going to have to be doing it for the first time. It'll be my first time, whenever it is, whether it's now or next year. So to me, I'd rather kind of just go through the process and that would make me more familiar with it. I'm only speaking for myself, sooner than later. And I think any time of any self-reflection is a valuable process, whether collectively or individually. That's just my
so now the table, we're now in the yes category. Okay, so I will move forward with that, and I'll put together a timeline for you, and I will send that out, and we'll get that going. And if we do it sooner than later, maybe it won't clash with the superintendent's evaluation. So we'll try to get that done. Okay. Is there any other unfinished business? Wait.
The green commit.
Wait, no, that's a
committee?
new business. Did I see, I have the superintendent's evaluation, the timeline. I could have sworn I saw that on the agenda somewhere. I don't see it now though.
No, Laura, I think I just emailed you and Carol to give you an outline of the timeline, but I didn't put it on the agenda yet.
Okay. All
yeah.
right. I just wanted to, since we're talking about timing and everything, I just wanted to run it to give you an update because we talked about it a little bit last time. So Dr. Hart will be compiling all of his data and have it available to us by April 16th. And then the April 27th board meeting, he will present in public the district goals, and then we'll have an executive session. And we'll go over what the whole process is for the board members. On May 7th, all board members will have the evaluation completed. Let's see, wait, we'll complete the evaluation. Wait. Yeah, no, that's right. Okay. And then this is 2 weeks from the prior meeting. So you'll have 2 weeks to complete the evaluation. And then on May 18th, we'll hold an executive session without him. And this is where we review the evaluation and we look at your comments and your grading, and then there is another form that we compile everything into. So I'll be compiling all of your responses, and then I'll be reviewing that with Carol. And then what we will do in that other meeting without Dr. Hart is we'll be looking at specifically what items do we want to put in there, what things do we feel that he is very strong in, and then what things would we like him to work on for future years. So that whole process. And then a final conference with him will be done on June 8th. And that will allow us to meet our statute timeline before the end of the year. So be aware of those dates. Is there anything else in unfinished business? Okay. New business from the board. Why don't we do Green Committee first?
Okay, so we had let me just make sure that I'm unmuted before I start going into this. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, because I got a different screen up now. I got the minutes up, so I can't see the. Okay, so we had I sent out the minutes in advance, so people had a chance to review them. We met on February 16th, and you know, I'll do what I try not to do, but I'm just going to read this. There was a discussion of cafeteria food waste handling. I discussed as chair of the subcommittee, I discussed the 10-year quest of the district to compost the organic fraction of all the cafeteria's waste, including the substitution of the compostable serviceware from the current disposables. In other words, substituting like the foam plates and bowls for plates and bowls that could be composted. The limitations previously preventing implementation were briefly addressed, such as the lack of a commercial food waste composting facility, all the complications with hauling, that it would tie up a staff, Dawn's staff, et cetera, that there weren't companies that would do it. There were contamination issues. We couldn't put in, if there were forks or other things in there, they would reject it, that there were a number of other limitations. I thanked Steve Forster for bringing this a facility to my attention, Trenton Renewables. He had brought my attention to it earlier in the day. I quickly contacted Trenton Renewables and then spoke directly with Andrew Johnson, the director of business development, and invited him to the subcommittee meeting, and he graciously agreed to present only hours later. He presented a video. Well, first, there's a link to a video which explains it better than I can. It's in the minutes of the process of Trenton Renewables, which is a large commercial facility, which is anaerobic digestion, which is a wet process, as opposed to aerobic composting, which is a dry or moist process. It digests the entire organic fraction of the waste stream, including paper, waxed cartons, meat, dairy, oils, etc. It takes everything that's organic. It accepts a high level of contamination, food wrappers, serviceware, recyclables. It doesn't trigger load rejection, which was one of the big worries that we had previously, was that if the kids had thrown some stuff in and there wasn't somebody actively watching every second to make sure that stuff wasn't rejected, wasn't sorted properly, that they'd throw out the whole load. That doesn't happen here. They sort it out, and then they take the stuff, whether it's plastic or metal or whatever happens to get in there, they sort it out and they actually recycle that. One of the major products here, now I wouldn't say byproduct, it's one of the major products, is it's a biogas production facility, in that it converts the organic fraction into methane, which is then combusted to produce alternative energy, not only for the facility as well, but for thousands of homes in the Trenton area. One of the tremendous benefits of this is obviously that it's an alternative energy source, but it also prevents the organic waste. Had it been landfilled, that methane would be released and into the atmosphere, and it's a very potent greenhouse gas, much more potent than carbon dioxide is. One of the things that it also does, which is it's a very innovative process, is that when the combustion of the methane, not only do they get the electricity off of it, but they also take the waste heat that would be lost from the combustion process and reutilize that waste heat. They capture it and utilize it for other on-site processes. So they get everything they can out of that methane, the electricity and the additional heat that's generated. It produces compost and fertilizer, which is then used for farming uses. They have they work very closely with haulers, so that would solve much of the problem that we had here. They work with middle-sized haulers, even down to what they call micro haulers, where they could have arrangements to just come right to the schools and pick the waste stream right up. So, you know, all we'd have to do is put it in drums or barrels or whatever it is that they're using. It wouldn't involve really any significant difference in what we're doing. I think this could be fairly easily implemented. The tipping fees are competitive. That's why I asked the question earlier of Dawn, where are we in our contracting cycle? I think that this is something, you know, if we can split that section out and get credit for either the tonnage, so that if we reduce by, you know, let's say 5 tons per annum or whatever the number is, they reduce the hauling to the landfill, et cetera, et cetera. That needs to be looked into. It's a qualified, there is a new law in New Jersey that food waste has to be alternatively disposed of. This is a qualified facility to do that. They also do full regulatory and sustainability reporting. So that is something that if they will keep records of everything that we give to them, and that I don't know this for a fact, but it's certain in my mind that this could be utilized in submissions to Sustainable Jersey for additional points. And they also their website calculates all the environmental equivalencies. So, for instance, the number of trees that were planted that could be the carbon dioxide that's prevented, the release, the methane release, how many trees it would be the equivalent of, how many car miles avoided, and the data could be used in our curriculum, again, to stimulate STEM interest. There was a discussion that Jason and Don would begin to look into this, but it's completely understood that right now the main goal of the district, the main purpose of this district, is to educate our students. We are in a difficult time converting back to in-class teaching in the middle of a snowstorm every other day, and tomorrow it's going to likely be locusts, and who knows, whatever. Anyway, as I made that comment to Dr. Hart the other day. But when they can, hopefully they will be able to look into the feasibility of this between operational parameters and contracting parameters. There was some additional discussion with Reddington Township about the implementation of this program for homeowners in the township. Either as there being a central location that the township might provide, where they have barrels that homeowners can just bring their food waste to, and that they would just simply seal up the barrels and take them away. They said that there was another township which is that they're doing this in. Or possibly they said they might even start doing a collection routes within the town itself. We didn't want to go too long because it was a long meeting. I did comment that if we do it here in the Reddington School District, that we may very well serve as a model for Hunterdon Central to follow. I do want to note that. That our school district here, the Reddington School District, led the way in mixed stream recycling collection in the area. That when it was a number of years ago, when it was first discussed as being feasible, a group of board members went to one of these recycling facilities in a field trip to see whether or not the mixed stream recycling actually was feasible and did work. We determined it did. The district initiated the project, and we led the way, and other then the township, et cetera, followed. So where Reddington School District leads, the rest of the area will follow. Other green initiatives and Sustainable Jersey. Betsy Freeman then talked about that Sustainable Jersey is offering a 1-year extension for the certification process, as many districts are currently otherwise occupied, obviously. And many of the activities for which they might collect points are simply, not possible under current conditions. There was discussion on the merits of accepting the extension, and the committee agreed that this was prudent, especially if we desired to remain silver status. We could certainly get bronze, but to get silver status, there are extra points that we would need that we just can't get under the current conditions in the schools. Sarah Pouch noted that nonetheless, the gathering and the data and the review of the school's applications should continue at some pace and not just be shelved for a year and put away. Dr. Hart addressed the Digital Star Schools program, which has been subsumed, and now that the Future Ready Schools program has been subsumed into it. There was discussion regarding the U.S. Green Building Council, district initiatives, curriculum. There was discussing biomimicry and art classes. Native gardens were discussed with Marlene Orlandi, who is from the Reddington Township. We have a lot of representation from the township, outreach with the township. She talked about including renovation of the RMS garden volunteers and introducing a water feature there. Ms. Freeman then talked about the Columbia University Climate Education Youth Summit and a presentation of her students on growing food and resilience in the Garden State. One of the things that was very interesting in her presentation was she said that normally the Columbia University researchers only work with high school students, but they found that our students, Reddington students, are so prepared and motivated that they worked with our students. And so let me brag on our students just a bit there. She then also presented about the New Jersey Water Grant, American Water Grant that White House is looking into applying. There was a discussion about the sustainability websites on all the different schools. Basically, the bottom line is they are a work in progress and that we should be patient. We're looking at uniformity, consolidation, content formatting, etc. There was a discussion by Neil Hendrickson, who is, I believe he is the chair of the Environmental Commission here in the township. And he was talking about on-campus opportunities for walking trails and guided walks with volunteers of various expertise, such as forestry and ornithology. So having volunteers from the township working with our students, possibly collaborating with the township and listing our dates on their website. And there was then a discussion as well as the parameters for public access to the school's properties. Similarly, there was also a discussion with the Township Water Watch regarding the Township Water Watch Advisory Committee to schedule stream walks, cleaning, and lessons, etc. So this is an opportunity. Many of the things that we've discussed in the Green Committee are ways that we can work with the township in fulfillment of our goal for outreach into the community. And our next meeting is April 13th at 3:30 p.m. And that, as long as it was, is that.
Thank you very much. That was great. Are there any questions on the green minutes?
I do. I guess a comment, but then a question. It's been a privilege to be on the committee, just to hear all the fantastic things that the district is doing, and then obviously how eager the town is to partner with us to, do some of these projects. I guess I just have a question procedurally, like, why is Green Committee listed for new business and not, like, why do we not vote on these in the same way that we do the other committees? I guess just curious how that happened.
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's just never been a section. There's never been a section on the actual agenda, usually green is more like a thought-provoking committee, the way I see it. They come up with the programs that then would fall under another category like finance or communications. So nothing really gets approved under green as it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, say there is an initiative that comes out of it, maybe this food waste program that the board wants to see happen. How do we show our support for it and make sure that it, and say that we do want it to happen?
It would show up in committee. Like it would show up maybe under finance on, because there's usually a cost with everything, right? So even, it all comes down to the dollars. So it'll go through finance, right? And we'll take a look at it. And then it would go up to the board. It would be read out in the finance committee. So if Green says, yes, we want to go forward to this. So then they would put it on a board agenda. And it would go to committee to finance. And sometimes it also gets involved with ed tech. So if there's an educational component, it would go through ed tech to figure that piece out. Sometimes it goes through communications as well. If we need to communicate out to the public or get people involved, if it's a very large project, and then eventually you'll see it on a board agenda. But those minutes will be read out, and everybody at each step will be able to provide feedback or buy-in. So there's plenty of opportunity for that sort of discussion.
Okay.
And as much, facilities is also, involved. A lot of times it's, ideas are raised and then there's a initial feasibility is looked into as to whether or not it's even merits being put in front of the other committees of the board. And that's, essentially where this is right, that particular initiative is right now.
Okay, that helps.
Does that answer?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure if there was, what the rationale was and why we're not voting on specific motions related to Green Committee, that sort of thing.
It's just not at that stage yet. It's the thought, the programs that are out there. It's more, I look at it as a research-based committee, that they look at what's available, what could we possibly do in the district. They do all the investigative work, and then they bring it back to the board to discuss, like he just did.
And it's certainly, it would be nice if we had the authority to vote on things, et cetera, but we'd also be giving up the opportunity to have the public, I think, at the meetings. We don't have the public at any of the other subcommittee meetings. And having the input for a number of reasons. We can't necessarily share the internal deliberations of the district. And I think that having their input into the Green Committee is absolutely vital for us to do what we do. I really think that's vital, actually.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Are there, talking about the next item is board member vacancy process. And actually, I don't think I printed out those dates. Well, I'll go by memory. Similar to the other ones that we did over the past couple months. Jason will be posting the opening. He'll collect, or Lisa probably will collect all of the applications. Someone from his department will also reach out to previous applicants to see if they still have interest. And then at the next board meeting, we will start an hour earlier. We'll do the interviews. And then that meeting will end up appointing that person. Does that sound? Is that right, Jason? Yes? Okay. So if you know anybody, this is another opportunity to be on the Reddington Township Board of Education. So Let's see. Is there any other new business from the board that you want to bring up? No. Okay. We're now open to the public. Anything on or off the agenda? And I still don't see any comments. There's no comments. Okay. Well, so I guess the public session would now be over and we'll move into executive session. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to discuss personnel/benefits budget for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action shall not be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. Can I get that motion?
So moved, Tom.
Second, Carol.
Carol? All right. What time is it? 8:13. And roll call, please.
Dr. Sosiello,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Swirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Amble,
Yes.
Mrs. Simon.
Okay. So we'll move over. Do you want to, does anybody need a break for like 2 minutes?